guys got my promo to be online at 5:30 and 5:30 prompt, and I'm sure you guys have done just that, and I love you for it. In case you guys don't know, this is the Rob Legend Show, and I come to you guys every Wednesday from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. And because it's a virtual roundtable, meaning we're connected to the internet, and you have the ability to call into the Rob Show. And if you haven't gotten the number by now, let me just repeat it. That's 773-893-3989. And we're coming to you guys live. You can call into it and do this before we get started good. Send out a text message to at least five to six of your friends. Say, hey, Rob Legend Show is broadcasting live. It's being recorded live for YouTube consumption. So absolutely come in, be a part of the audience, be a part of the roundtable discussion, because we got some things we need to talk about as a people, as a humanity. We got some real serious things happening in our world that we need to bridge some of the issues with, so that we can all live in a world that was meant for all living things. All right? Well, as you guys know, the Rob Legend Show usually spend the first 10 to 15 minutes talking about what's going on in the world. And tonight shouldn't be any different from any other night. Right. You guys know there's a hurricane that pounded the East Coast, beat up on the Carolinas. I got a report from one friend that there was one or two casualties as a result of the storm. So praises and glory be unto God that these spirits are taken care of. Amen. But at the same time, we find that's rather tragic when someone loses their lives in a storm these days, because normally the news tell us days and sometime a week before the storm get there that the storm is coming. And if you stay in the area knowing that a storm is coming, you are taking unnecessary risk. I mean, I'm not blaming the people for losing their lives. I just think that anytime you refuse to leave an area when you know that something is coming that's going to cause a great amount of harm to you and your family, you should take that opportunity to leave or flee the areas. I don't understand. Maybe it's just me, but I think sometimes the animals are smarter than we are, because what I've seen the animals do is, I grew up on a farm, so when a storm was coming up, the animals started to hunker down. The chickens got up in the coop, up in the trees, wherever they went, and they made sure they weren't out there with the storm going on. And the other animals and everything huddled up together. They got out the way. But us humans, who are supposed to be the superior race, supposed to be the superior creature on the planet, we try to stay in the way of storms. But I grew up on a farm, so I realized that when the animals start, getting out the way, I might need to start getting out the way too. So I'm a little bit smarter than some people in those regards, okay? But again, we don't want to be too hard on people that have lost their lives. We just say, before you get to a situation where life is lost, please heed the warnings and the technology that God has put in front of us and everything to give us the advanced warning, so we won't have to come back later on and have to deal with a funeral and bury a baby. And that's what happened. A young child passed away in this situation.
Besides, nothing is really worth a life.
No.
Nothing is worth it.
Absolutely.
It's a home. Whatever the person wants to save by staying behind is not worth a life. A life is priceless. It doesn't matter how much money or how much property you put on it, it still would not equal to a life.
It's not equal to the price of a life. There's nothing more valuable than the human life. Now, before we get going, you guys already heard one of my guests sitting at the table at the actual round table. But as you know, the Rob Legend Show been coming at you guys strong for at least 2.5 years now, and we have a virtual round table. That means that everybody around the world can actually sit down and take part of this conversation and be a part of the audience. And when you call into the show and everything, I open your line wide open so that you will be an absolute part of the conversation. All you got to do is start speaking, and I'll shut up and let you get your words in. That's just the way I do it, because I think everybody's voice matters at the Rob Legend Show. Now, sitting to my right, I have a brother who is at the actual round table tonight. I'm going to let him introduce himself, tell us who he is, where he's from, what he does, and how he can bring some information to you. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, thanks very much. It's a great pleasure to be on the show. My name is Sheyi Adeyemi. I'm from Nigeria. I run a firm called Weavers Consults, which is a training and management firm. And also with my wife, we run a school, an elementary school called Weavers Private School down in Lagos, Nigeria.
Wow.
It's a great pleasure to be on this show.
Absolutely. I'm glad to have you on the show from Nigeria. You have traveled very far, my brother. And you're doing great things. You have started a school, and anytime you get the opportunity to train the minds of the young people, you are doing greater than most of us. So I am absolutely, I take my hat off to you because that's a beautiful thing.
Absolutely. It's a great pleasure to see those young folks develop, to give them opportunities to actualize their potentials in life.
Absolutely.
And that's why we put a school in a low-income area to make sure that, quality education is affordable to as many as, can come to the school. And we're, hoping to expand that to as many children as we can so that they can become useful adults, and make life, the world a better place.
Absolutely. And also we got to my left here at the virtual roundtable, we may have Miss Chantal Fortunate Manley from Atlanta, Georgia, by way of Atlanta, by way of Hades, by way of all over the world. Miss Chantal, what brings you to Boston to sit at this actual round table this time? I know you've been a fan of the show since its inception. You've always sat at the virtual table. You've brought tremendous amount of knowledge and insight into a lot of the conversation we had. So what brings you to Boston?
Well, Robert, thank you for having me. I am here for the Holy Convocation, the Way of the Cross Holy Convocation, invited by Bishop Frank Kelly. So that's why I'm here, and I'm here at the show. I am a health coach, entrepreneur, all-around seeker of knowledge, and of course a great fan of the Rob Legend Show, and in anything that helps us to move forward in our community. So I'm excited to be here again today to participate and provide my insight to providing the solutions, like you always say.
It's got to be about solution. And I want to apologize that I was not there to witness your presentation. I did get some feedback from a couple other people. You did a wonderful job. And one other thing you guys need to know, or several things you know about Chantal. Chantal is in the process of writing a book. She's writing a book on Caribbean-style food. However, it's from a vegan perspective. I'm curious and interested in getting that cookbook, and I'm going to buy, I promised her this, once the cookbook become real, I'm buying at least 10 copies of the book, and I'm going to give it out to the people that I love and respect, and hopefully they utilize the book and start to change their diet and eat healthier food, and in turn turn around some of the health issues that we're facing as a people around the world because we eat any kind of crap we put in our body. So hopefully you finish the book soon. And it's on the market soon, because I definitely plan to get at least 10 copies. I might even get 25 copies of the book and give them out. And I'm going to encourage all my friends, and I'm going to encourage the entire relaunch team to also buy at least 10 copies of this book. You need to get, if you're part of the relaunch team, and that's including you too, Bishop Kelly, you need to buy at least 10 copies of Chantal's book and give it out to your friends and your family and encourage them to use the book, because good health means good life, means quality life. All right? Welcome to the show, Chantal.
Thank you, Robert.
All right. I do have a subject I want to get into. I want to jump head first into this subject. So I sent out this promo, so I'm going to read it to you. I said, once we decide what or who and where and when, the common enemy is to all humanity, perhaps the lines of division around things that cannot be changed will be blurred, even erased. What are the common enemies to all humans? Let's list them. Let's discuss them. And let's agree that they are indeed the things that we should focus on concertedly to fight against, so that we can merge as a humanity and not be encumbered by these lines of division. So let's talk about
Wow, that's
the things. Let's throw some things on the table. The list of things on the table that affects all human, regardless of your gender, regardless of where you came from in the world, regardless of your skin color, regardless of your height, your weight, your whatever. We want to find the common things that affect all humans, that we can say to the next person, while you're focusing on the color of my skin, you need to be looking at this, because it kills you and it kills me too.
I would say let's start with ignorance.
Ignorance. Now that's a hodgepodge.
Your whole topic is a tall glass of water.
It's a tall glass.
It's like, I didn't think you even breathed when you were reading it. It just like was, whoo, it was just like, it's very profound. But I think we can start. We have a lot of things that we could list, but we can start with ignorance, because it encompasses so many things, like you just said, skin color. It's ignorance, right? It's ignorance when people focus on it's a lack of knowledge, because as we know, we all belong to one race, the human race. So it's ignorance that divides us when it comes down to the color line.
Okay.
When you say, I was saying yesterday on the show that all of a sudden, from the time I was growing up as a child, was that, Haitians don't like Jamaicans. The reason we saying that is because we don't know each other. We're ignorant of our history, because there's more that bond us and tie us together than divide us.
Okay.
But we ignorant about that, so therefore we just divided.
You and the brother both are educators. Chantal did not tell you that she also had a school, and she's looking to launch a new school as well. So you all have the opportunity to form the young brains, to change the narrative for them, to change their dynamic, to give them an enemy that is not color, that is not gender, that is not based on age, that is not based on the things that divide us. So how do you shape those young minds? Because if you shape the young mind, that means that you eliminated that thing you mentioned, which is ignorance. How do you get there?
Yeah, well, I think closely related to ignorance are prejudices.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because based on those ignorances, prejudices are built.
Yes.
Non-existent images are formed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the most important thing is to begin to tear this down by the fact of our common humanity.
Yes.
For people to know that whatever they are, does not depend on where they come from, does not depend on the skin, the color of their skin.
Mm-hmm.
It's simply a matter of their values.
Yes.
So when we begin to find common grounds in values, then we're able to begin to break down these prejudices that have been built on the foundation of ignorance.
On ignorance, yeah. Prejudices and ignorances. That's two things for the list. One seems to feed the other one. These prejudices come out of the fact that we don't know enough about each other.
Absolutely.
And because there's another factor that goes into that, it's called fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are ignorant of each other, we develop these prejudices of each other, we develop these fears.
Phobias, yeah.
So in America, we talked about it last night a little bit on the show. The face of crime in America is a black male face. And it has been introduced, inundated, and re-inundated so many times to the point where even myself as a black male, when I hear about a crime taking place, I immediately put a black male face on it. When I hear that there was a drive-by, young black man did it. When I hear that somebody just got shot down in the street, young black man did it. When I hear that somebody's store got broken into, or somebody was armed robbed, or a bank got hit, I immediately, my face, I see a young black face, male face, doing it.
It's conditioning.
Right. I think what has happened is that, I mean, if you look at the trajectory, there's this ignorance, there's this prejudices, obviously leads to stereotypes.
Right.
Which is exactly what you're saying. Because, and to a large extent, if you have repeated, actions being done by the same people of the same race,
Right.
then over a period of time, you are likely to arrive at some,
Conclusion.
conclusions. So it's but then it doesn't mean that every black face or every black man you see is a potential criminal. You understand? Which
Exactly.
is probably what the problem is right now. But I think that again we need to look at the environment and begin to throw up statistics.
But Shay, let me interject here. I think it's strategically done. It's not because black people are doing this more and more over and over again that people have built the stereotypes in their brain. The stereotypes is built in because it's been strategically designed to be that way. Let me explain that.
Okay.
It's a marketing thing. It's a propaganda. Like, for example, like, you from an African country, I'm from a Caribbean country.
Right.
We know how propaganda work.
Right.
They describe our country like, bad. Everything bad is about our country, but you don't see anything. People talk about, they think I took a boat to come here. And I'm like, I've never taken a boat in my life except for a cruise.
Right.
But it's propaganda. So it's not because people in Haiti are just like, all of them are just, not literate and living in the slums. Or it's because that's what's been portrayed. In the United States, what's been strategically done is that they've been portraying African Americans in a dark light over and over and over again. And it's been documented from a psychological perspective. And it tells you from when you condition the mind, there's the result. That's what happened,
So what happens, to build on to what you're saying, is that we end up as black people, if there is such thing as a black people,
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
Which is crazy in all of itself, because I still haven't been able to find a nation called black people yet.
Yes.
See, like you don't identify, I'm a black man. You say, I'm a Nigerian, which is a
Exactly.
problem for us in this land, because we should be able to say, I am an American, and that should be the stopping point. Regardless of the complexion of my skin, I should be definite, and that's again erasing that ignorance, right? It would be definite in, no, do not identify me by the color of my skin. Identify me by the land in which I was born, which once upon a time, that is the way it was done. Even when you read the scripture, read the Bible, everybody they identify in the Bible, they are identified from the land in which they came from. They were born. Sumerian, Judean, the Nubians, all these different people, the Egyptians, the Romans, the Greek. They were all identified by the land in which they came from. The Spaniards get in this country, and because they created such a system, and it's a system now, of division. And this system of division exists for one reason, and for one reason only. For money. For money. There's probably not a people on the planet that did not subjugate another people. Even in Nigeria, Nigeria subjugated other people. They had people working for them, indentured other people, right or wrong, in the history. Yeah, exactly. So That's not so. So slavery or servitude or indentureness is not brand new to Europeans. This happened all over the world. We got the Egyptians in the Bible supposedly enslaved the Hebrew, the Israelites, right?
Yes.
So that's not new. And even in the Israelite or the Hebrew faith, they use the term master and servant as if there was a structure there for servitude. So this is not brand new, but it was done for the purpose of money. So the common enemy I see, and you guys can agree or disagree, and it's okay. We can. That's the whole thing about. We're not here to agree. We're here to discuss. The common enemy to all people, is the I want to use a word that's going to make sense. The common enemy to all people is the absolute power grab for money. That's the common enemy. Because the power grab for money creates all the divisions.
You mean greed? Is that what you mean, or the power grab?
It's more than greed. It's the power grab for money, because even when you go down to the street level drug pusher, okay, even when you get down to the drug level drug pusher, the one that's on the street that's running to the corner and selling the drug, the grab for power, right, to be the best drug dealer causes him to become the enemy of the other guy who wants to be the best drug dealer, so that will give them power to come up beyond being just a drug dealer. Now you become a drug pusher, you become a dealer. And when you become after you become a dealer, you become one of these other things, a gangster, somebody that's in charge of all of this stuff. It's the power grab that is the problem. People, greed is in there. It's a part of it. But it is when people are fighting to grab that power by all means, is the enemy of all people. It has caused wars. You probably can't find a war on the planet in the history of mankind that did not happen because somebody wanted power.
Power is intoxicating.
Very.
So once people are in power, like we've seen, they don't want to give it up.
Refuse.
It's a drug that really cannot be flushed out of your system.
Well, again, that depends on the understanding of what power is all about and where power really belongs. And that's where, well, our views as, Christians will come in. We believe that power belongs to God. And that, if you take power in terms of position, then it comes along with responsibility. And so God gives people power in order to fulfill obligations, which brings about the responsibility on you. But when people want to get power just for personal aggrandizement, then you can see the, devilish, influence.
Exactly.
Right there. And, it's all become a competitive, battle for people to take power. And what do they want to do in order to subjugate the other guy?
Yeah.
Whereas power is meant to liberate.
But look at the power grab in the beginning. Let's go back to the garden.
Cain and Abel.
No, let's go back to the garden. That was a power grab that took place right there. The tempter tempted Adam and said, "Hey, you eat this bad boy, you're gonna be like God." Power grab.
So you can see the competitive, kind of thing. We want to be like God.
Be like God.
But the whole purpose.
But every one of us want to be like God. Every one of us. I haven't met a person yet that didn't want to be God-like.
No. Well, I think the context is different.
Like God,
the context is different.
God
I mean, being godly,
or
it's different. Being godly means that you you're sharing the nature of God. You are reflecting the nature of God.
Right.
But being like God means that you want to take power and
Yeah.
exercise power.
Just like
Just
Satan
like God.
did.
You want to compare. You want to be another God.
Yeah.
You know, in terms of a big G, because
Yeah.
God intends us to be a small G on
But-
earth. You understand? But you know, this G wants to become a big G, like the real G.
Yeah.
But even before the garden,
Before
let's
the
go
garden.
back before the garden, when the archangel, thought he was God and tried to overthrow God before even the God decided to create,
Okay.
you know, to create man. There was a battle in heaven
Where he
where the
wanted to
best
take
of
over.
the angels, the most beautiful one, the chosen one, thought he was God. Power that's existed. That just tells you how far he went. He thought he was God, so he created a rebellion and he tried to overthrow God so he could be God.
See, that's my. You're making my point.
No, I am agreeing with you. I'm agreeing with you.
It's the grab for power that has corrupted man from the beginning. And it is so intertwined in who we are that we build stadiums so big that thousands upon thousands of people come and watch us compete. And even before that, when you go back to the days of Rome and the days of ancient Egypt, when they put men in arenas and threw them in with lions and threw them in with swords and spears and bows and arrows and other types of terrific weapons to use against each other, the carnage. Thousands of people showed up to watch people kill other people because we have a thirst for power.
Absolutely.
That man walking in right now, John Ross, he wants power. He wants power, just like the rest of us. I mean, I often ask, and I'm going to put this question around the table, and this is hypothetical. If the Lord God, great Almighty, came to each one of us around the table, and you guys at the virtual round table, you guys can answer too, came to you and said, I want to surrender one of my power to you, only one.
Right.
And once you have that power, you will have that power absolute. And I am all powerful. And I'm going to surrender one of my power to you. Which of those powers would you take?
Well, I wouldn't think twice before I follow suit with Solomon. I'll take the power of wisdom.
Power of wisdom. Okay. Tell me why you take power of wisdom.
Oh, well, the Bible says wisdom is the principal thing. In all you're getting, get wisdom, get understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Because I believe that that's the precursor of every other thing.
Okay. All right. What would you take?
Wow, it's because you know my children all the time give me that question and I can never answer because they always talk about if I would have one superpower, what would that be? I think I would choose the power to give life.
To give life.
Yeah.
Which means you also have the power to
Take it
take
away.
life. Can't give it without taking it.
That's right.
Why would you choose the power to give life? When you say give life, what does that mean? Let's define that first, because you know if I read the story of creation, it wasn't the giving of life that took place. So
it was the
creation
of life.
Yeah.
Yes.
So which one
So-
you creating or you giving? Which one is it?
Creating.
Okay. Power to create life.
To create life and
Okay. Chantal has the power of God to create life. And it is the question now falls upon her. What life would you create?
what life would I create? I would create life everywhere from a physical standpoint, from a terrestrial, from a land. Create life, meaning life in trees and areas that are not populated, that's been the forests that have been taken over by men, and just completely the natural habitat have been taken away. From a physical perspective, create life, meaning that allowing people to be able to give life. There's so many people around the world that cannot procreate and cannot give life, that have done everything in their power, cannot give life, and would do anything to do that. Allow people to be able to have that joy, to create life. And by creating life, I also mean, I think by creating life, it's about connecting, bring life where it's dead. Like people that has, that their parts of their body are dead. I think that's connected to healing. But, you know, creating life has a strong sense of reviving things that have been dead. Bringing back to life what's been dead. It's creating.
But what if
life.
God came and said to you, great, nice and fine, I did that, and on the 6th day, 7th day, I rested. All that's been created, that ever going to be created, it's all been done. That job is done. You cannot have that one. Choose another one.
Oh, okay. Well, I don't know. I don't know, Robert. I'm going to let you give yours first so I can think of another one, because
There is one godly power that I would take, and that would be the power of absolute communication. I want the ability to talk to, speak to, communicate with all things, all humans, all creatures, everywhere, anywhere. I want to be able to communicate with them. That's the only power I care about.
Okay.
Why?
Why?
Because communication breaks down all barriers, erase all divisions. I see it all, I hear it all, I understand all. It almost being all powerful.
Well, I don't think anybody can. Well, taking just one, you know, it's like pieces of a puzzle. So we
And
just need
something's
to,
missing.
something is missing.
But that's interesting you say that. That's interesting you say that. Keep in mind, though, many people walk through this world and they get their first job, and they'll keep that same job until they retire or until they die or whatever. And that's the only job they ever would do, that one job. And they'll do it very well, or they'll do it enough to get by. So if you had one power, and that power would be the power of wisdom, you say that wisdom does you no good unless, of course, you have other powers to go with it.
Well,
Because let's talk about, you brought up Solomon. Let's talk about Solomon. Because Solomon, with all his wisdom, Solomon made some serious mistakes.
I get you. I get you. Absolutely. But the Bible talks about godly wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
So if you receive godly wisdom, absolutely the motive behind the request for wisdom was to be able to, decipher between what is right and what is wrong. To be a leader, to be able to take decisions, to be able to lead the people.
Mm-hmm.
But obviously, once you step out of the godly wisdom and begin to take worldly wisdom, which was part of the challenge that Solomon had,
Right.
then of course you run into troubled waters. And don't forget that since we're taking something from God, you're going to take the one that is the good part of it.
Okay.
And stay with it. Of course, Bible talks about godly wisdom being first and foremost peaceable. So it enables you to live at peace with all men, enables you to take right decisions, enables you to do the right things, to say the right things. In fact, your communication is subsumed under wisdom.
Yep. I was putting that in because it does require a level of wisdom to be able to do that, communicate
Exactly.
with all.
effectively.
And wisdom helps you to sustain the life you create.
Right.
Right.
So
It's
I see it as a
connected.
little bit more all-encompassing.
Okay. Interesting. And
Very.
you wouldn't take anything from God other than create. He said you can't have that one now.
No, I'm not saying I wouldn't take. I'm just saying it's very difficult for me to think of what I would take from the power of God It's difficult for me to think in that on that plane. You know.
Here's what I'm going to fry both of y'all brains. I know you already know this. Every one of those powers you say you would take, you already have them.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. You need to activate
I
it.
agree.
You activate it. You wise. It takes a tremendous amount of wisdom to sit right here in front of somebody you don't even know and be completely at home with sharing your mind and your thoughts and your heart with the thousands of people that's tuned into the Rob Legend Show right now, listening to your voice. And there are even more thousands of people that's going to listen to you and see you on YouTube. And to be able to deliver these words in such a way where it causes people to form thoughts and possibly change the direction or even enhance the direction they choose to move forward in life. That takes wisdom, and you already have it. You don't have to wait anymore. You got it.
No, I
More
mean,
of it.
no, completely agree.
Create life.
Something that I've
You create life every day with your
No,
tongue.
That's what I was saying yesterday. Every time you speak, you see either speaking life or you speaking death. That's what the Bible says. Choose wisely, because every time your mouth opens, every time you say something, you're either killing somebody or you actually speaking life into them. But you know, Jesus himself, when he left, he said, "These things I do, you shall do greater." And whether or not you believe that Jesus was God, many said that Jesus was a great prophet. If at the least, he was a great prophet. And he had great powers because he healed the sick, he fed uncountable 5,000 people with what, 7 fish and 5 loaves of bread or something like that. So he did great things. So if those things he said, we shall do greater than these things,
We already do
that
it.
means we have greater power than, oh my gosh, Jesus. We have greater power than Jesus. And Jesus,
Now, you know good and
raise
well you're
people
going to have a hard time convincing lay people or convincing the good Christians that we have more power than Christ.
he said it. That-
Well,
he said we shall do greater than what he did. So
yeah, well, I think my own interpretation would be the fact that, I mean, looking at the context of that statement, in terms of evangelizing, in terms of reaching out, you know, he says, "You will be my witness in Jerusalem, in Judea, in Samaria, and to the ends of the world." Okay, so in that dimension, Jesus couldn't get to the end of the world, and he
That's true.
committed that responsibility to us, you know,
but
to
what about the
believers.
statement that he said, you shall do greater than I did? What's
It
the
says
context?
greater works.
Greater
It
works.
says, "The work I do, you shall do greater works than these." So
Okay,
you have to contextualize that
So
statement.
what are the works then?
No,
Let's
no.
talk
Well,
about-
basically, you can evangelize. You would raise the works he did, which we have seen
so
great
the-
men of God and women
so
of God
the-
do.
So Shay, so the acts that Jesus did, like healing and feeding and raising the dead, those are not included in
No,
that
they are.
statement?
They are
Okay,
absolutely,
so that's
absolutely they are. Absolutely they are.
oh, okay.
And those things are happening. They happen
Oh, yeah,
every day.
sure.
No, exactly. That's what I'm bringing up. That's
Absolutely.
what I'm saying. So it's. I
See,
think,
what the difference is in everything is the context here. And he basically laid it out as far as not greater that in the sense that you be better than Jesus.
right.
Greater in that in the time in which you are to come along, you'll be able to, the advancements that will come along with you, you'll be able to expand and do more things because you will have the ability that's already been laid before you as a path to do those things. That's what he's talking about.
Right.
Yeah, if I understood it correctly.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
So in that regards, you think in terms of since Christ has been here, we have had tremendous amount of advances in drugs, technology, the mechanical things have become more functional. A life can go flat, and we can bring it back. Just that simple. A person that was once upon a time deemed as a dead person, ready to die, now can be given new life because we have studied each other enough, or we continue to study each other, and we have combined the things that God has put on the planet. Because, like I said on the show last night, I truly believe God, in all God's infinite wisdom, placed the answer to every problem that humanity would come across inside of each and every one of us, spread out across the entire human species. And it's for us to come together where we can come together and combine those resources, combine that energy to discover what those answers are and solve those problems. The three of us sitting at this actual round table, and the many of you guys sitting at the virtual round table, that's Rob Legend Show, you have a tremendous mind, and a God put it within you to work with other people to come up with the solutions for the problems we face with. We just got to bridge that gap, and the only way to really bridge that gap is we got to start to communicate. We got to start to talk to each other, start to let it be known that what hurts you hurt me. What makes me laugh might make you laugh too. You might find it funny. Now here's something interesting. You may find it interesting. Back to your point about prejudice or preconceived notions about people based on what we see, based on what we hear, and based on our past experiences that was many times given to us by either another human being or media, whomever. We have these formed ideas about people. There's this white guy I work with. To look at him, and just some of the things he says, some of the things he don't say, you immediately put him in the category as this racist. Okay? And my coming from a southern background where we was basically raised to, steer clear of white men because they, as a black man, I am a endangered species when it comes to the white man. That is how we are basically raised in the South. Okay? But something happened one day and a conversation jumped off, and I spoke about growing up in the countryside, growing up on the farm, growing up with a father that was a serious disciplinary. And I told a story about how my father's voice was so profound and so compelling that when he spoke, it was like the voice of God. And there wasn't a wait till he called you again. Soon as you heard your name, you went running to see what Daddy wanted, right? And I told that story to my team. That's like 7 or 8 of us on my team at work, and they came and they was talking about it. And some of the people were like, "Oh man, your daddy was." I said, "Let me tell you something. My daddy did not play the radio unless it was on a station he liked." It's just that simple. And his station was, "I'm right, you wrong. I call, you come." That's it. It's just that simple. There's no if and no but suppose about it. And you had to come, because if you didn't, he had to get up and come get you and everything. He was coming out of his pants with his belt, and it was already going back. And before you look up good, it was already across you. And it wasn't one time. My daddy didn't play the radio unless it was his channel. Okay, that's just that simple. So I was telling this story to my co-workers, and this white dude who I had this wall up against, right, and felt like he was this racist thing over here, and I'm just keeping my thing. Yeah, we work together, but I got this wall up. We was walking back to our desk, and he walked up beside me and said, "Rob, he said, my dad was like that too." He said, "My daddy was really a serious disciplinary as well, and when he called, I had to go." And he said, "My daddy didn't play either." And from that point forward, a wall came down. And that dude, he and I have been talking without issue, without any concern, without any hang-ups for the last couple of years, like we've known each other our whole lives, because we talked. Because somebody, me first, told a story. I told my life story. So that's what I do on the Rob Legend Show. I'm encouraging everybody, you guys listening in over the internet, listening through the dial-in, tell your story. Many of us are too afraid to tell people where we came from, too afraid to tell people that I grew up in a house where things wasn't great. I grew up in a house where my mother didn't have it all together. I grew up where maybe my father did or didn't or whatever. Tell your story. And don't be embarrassed about telling your story, because trust me, somebody, and I say this to my brothers in the pulpit, I'm not telling y'all how to preach. I'm not telling you how to preach. When you tell your story and it's an honest story, that person sitting back there that came through that door and everything with a heavy heart and a hard journey, when they hear your story, they connect.
Absolutely.
They connect. Like I said, this guy connected to me a couple of years ago, and we've been having conversations freely with each other ever since. I no longer see him as this white dude. He's a man. He has the same struggles that I have. But I would have never gotten there except that I told my story. So we need to stop being afraid to tell our story.
I think you also found common grounds.
Common.
In terms of values of your upbringing.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that also worked with your story. Because if he couldn't connect with your story and your story looked distant to him, you probably may not have achieved as much as you achieved in terms of your connection. But because he could identify with it and say, oh, by the way, we have a similar kind of upbringing, discipline, exposure, parentage, background. So there's really nothing that should separate us, because we've all been brought up as disciplined, guys. And then, we can live, a similar disciplined life.
Absolutely.
It's the common denominator, right? Like last night, you went to that show.
Yeah.
And the guy kept asking you, "Are you a Benjamin?" Because even though he's from the island, and his father and your father, you sound like you were describing his father. You must have said at least 4 times, "Are you one of ours?"
Yeah.
Because I tell people that all the time. I've been quite to a few countries, and what I've really seen is that we all basically the same people. That's why there's one race, the human race. When you go to different countries, and that's why I always say to people, go outside of your comfort zone. Georgia is not the center of the universe. The United States is not the center of the universe, because the more you go out and the more you meet other people, the more you find out how much you have in common with them.
Right.
Like I went to China last year, and I meet people like from all over the world. I meet people from Korea and different. When I share with them, I love to talk. When I meet with people and I share with them customs, things that we share, like back in Haiti. And I met a lady at the spa a couple of weeks ago, and I was sharing certain customs that they do in Haiti, and she's from Korea. She said, "We do exactly the same thing." And they were like, "What?" But it's always when you connect your people, I think, experiences connect people, language connect people.
Right.
When you can connect immediately, when you speak someone's language, whether it's through the experience or the actual language,
Right.
it's instant. If I'm at the grocery store and I meet somebody that speaks Spanish and they're having difficulty communicating, and I jumped in and I translate for them and I say, "What do you need?" And I help them immediately.
That's a connection.
They connect with me as if I'm their sister.
Right.
Or I know them. They start talking to me. They start inviting me over and say, "Hey, where do you live?" And they're trying to, and it doesn't matter what I look like.
Right.
It breaks that barrier. And I think that's a common denominator to break the common enemies. Once we can connect to our experiences, to the way we see our perspective, that, that's the way I'm bringing the solutions now.
Yeah, the solution is what you said, what you're saying. Those are the solution to the problem. We had to agree that the common enemy for all people, and I'm not sure we quite agree on it yet, is the fact that people are so power hungry to a point where they're willing to desecrate,
We agree.
destroy, and just absolutely eliminate anything and anybody to grab that power. We even went back to the first sinner, Lucifer, the devil. His power grab for heaven got him cast out.
Right.
We went down to the garden where Adam and Eve power grab for eternal life, or the power to, what was the
To
power?
be like God.
To be like gods. And then we went to their kids, Cain and Abel. Power grab. And then you have nations that sprung up from that, and they spent their whole time fighting each other for power. We're down to 60 minutes. I'm sorry, 60 seconds. Wow. Down to 60 seconds on the Rob Legend Show. And sitting to the left of me, this brother from Nigeria. I'm sorry. To the right of me, this brother from Nigeria who has spoke with tremendous amount of wisdom. Again, I want to thank you for being on the Rob Legend Show. It has been an absolute pleasure of mine. And I want to thank Miss Chantal, who's also been a tremendous supporter of the Rob Legend Show. I want to thank you guys for showing up. I want to thank you guys for dialing in, and the ones of you that came in through the internet for joining me tonight. I hope you guys were able to get some good information from the discussion we had around the table. If you have any questions, any concerns, anything that you want to add, definitely inbox me, email me, text me. I don't care. We can talk about this, because until we tell our story, people don't know who we are, and if they don't know who you are, then they cannot start to erase the walls and divisions between us, okay?
Yeah.
So I want to say good night to you guys. Thank you for joining the Rob Legend Show. Catch me next Wednesday from 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock. I look forward to talking to you again. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.